Hello, hello, it's Lisa. Welcome to Midlife Mojo. Today I'm pulling back the curtain to bring you a real life check-in from the messy middle of working on a big goal. So some of the highs, the struggles, and all the things I'm learning along the way. Welcome to Midlife Mojo, the podcast all about how to be fit and flourish in your 50s with me, your host with over 25 years of experience in the health, fitness, and wellness industry, Lisa Dupree. We'll be talking about all the things that support living life to the fullest. Let's dive in. So here we are about 7 to 8 weeks away from my first bodybuilding physique competition. This phase of training is called prep, and this point, it really feels like this is where the rubber hits the road. I'm rolling 2 weeks, my 7 weeks and 8-week check-in into one episode because it's just been a couple of weeks that were full of ups and downs and really all the feels. So getting it all into one. So let's start with the good stuff. Last week, I got my monthly measurement of body fat, lean muscle, overall weight, and things were looking great. My body fat percentage has gone down over 2% in 4 weeks, and that's a pretty short amount of time to see that much of a change. My lean muscle mass went up by about a half a pound. So progress is real. It's really happening. So I felt so encouraged. I was proud of myself. I felt motivated. The plan is working. My consistency with the eating, the exercising, prioritizing recovery and sleep is paying off. And then, bam, right? Seemingly out of nowhere, I started to let things slide. I ended up listening to that little voice that kind of crept in. You probably know the one. It says things like, you have been doing all the right things. You've been doing so good. You deserve to reward yourself. Let's loosen up a bit. Let's splurge. Let's go out to eat and have a few drinks. And yeah, I did. I had a couple of days off plan, and it really felt good to loosen up, to indulge. Mind you, it was nothing too wild, but it was just enough to shake my momentum. And then came the emotional hangover, that moment where reality sets in and, I was left thinking, what am I doing? The sadness, the frustration that I felt of damn, I did it again. Why did I do this? Why didn't I just stay the course? And then, that was followed really closely by a lot of doubt. Am I really going to be able to get back on track? Or did I just totally blow it? So all these things hit really, really hard. Self-sabotage, it just sucks. So what hit me the hardest was how quickly my wins, my progress, that excitement was overshadowed by those emotions, the desire. Let's take it easy. Let's reward yourself. Give yourself a break. And then how closely it was followed by the more strong emotions, kind of emotional spiral. The high of seeing the progress, the strong desire to just relax a bit, and then the feeling of relief to just let go, indulge, and then all those other feelings, the sadness, the frustration, the doubt that followed. It was just a really big reminder that this prep, this process, and honestly, this is the same when you're working toward any big goal that requires change in your routine, change in your lifestyle, changes in specific behaviors. It isn't just physical. It's emotional. It's mental. And it just takes way more than willpower and motivation to keep going. It takes compassion. The amount of self-compassion it takes to kind of work through some of these things that come up emotionally and mentally, it's just not talked about enough. And I don't think it's considered enough in the change process as well. I really had to sit with that sadness that came up when I realized, you just gone off the rails for 2 days. What are you doing? I had to sit with it and not beat myself up. I had to acknowledge the frustration and the doubt and not wallow in it, not let it get to me. I had to choose to begin again without shame. It's not always easy, but it does get easier with awareness and practice. So the first thing I did was just go back to the basics, take the next most logical step. And for me, that was refocusing on my next meal, my next workout, not really considering that whole mountain ahead of me, like everything that needs to happen to 8 weeks. And then, what was the outcome going to be? It was just refocusing on that next step that I could take, and made it small, and it made it doable. And this allowed to me to shift the momentum and not keep veering off course. So the second thing was that I really had to have an honest conversation with myself. Was I willing to let a couple of days off track turn into a week or 2 weeks of drifting off course and doing things that were not aligned with my goal of being the best version of myself and showing up at the best level that I could for me at this time in 8 weeks for my competition? And yeah, that was enlightening. I had to really consider, was I willing to let this snowball into losing the progress that I'd already worked so hard for? And the answer for me was really a very, very loud and clear no. I reminded myself why I started this. I reminded myself of the big reasons for taking on kind of a transformation like this, of doing the hard things, what it meant to me. And I've talked about it in the last couple of check-ins of really having some realizations that it's big for me, but it's also bigger than me. And I also had to realize that one slip, getting off track for a day or so, it doesn't erase all the progress that I've made. I did a full episode a little while back on what to do when you slip up. So I will link that in the show notes as well if you want to go back and listen to that. Because really, I'm just practicing what I'm preaching here at this point because I know it works. I've seen it work. I've seen it work with my coaching clients, and I'm making it work for me at this point. So this really helped me get back into the mindset that I needed to keep going. So all good. Fast forward to the weekend. I was able to go to a show in my area and watch some amazing fit model competitors on stage. It was so exciting. And I'm pretty sure it was the first ever fit model division comp in Florida. So they just started this division this year. We are still pretty early into the year. So it was super exciting to be there. I was so inspired. It just was amazing. And also a little intimidated. But one thing that really stood out to me was that each woman up there, she looked strong. She was proud. They were glowing. It was just beautiful to witness. And it was great to see real life examples of that end goal. I also really had to stay grounded, stay mindful of not getting pulled into a comparison trap, and then kind of going back into that kind of emotional turmoil, because I'm in prep. I'm very much in the process. And these women up on the stage, they were at their peak performance level, right? And so, remembering we can't compare our process to someone else's finish line or their peak. And so the things that I really took away from these past couple of weeks, and it is really helpful to remind myself of this especially when you're in it. And maybe this is a good reminder for you too. Progress isn't linear. We want it to be linear. We want it to be, but it just isn't. There are going to be ups and downs. There are going to be 2 steps forward. There's going to be 1 step back. It's going to happen. Growth and doing the work to achieve your goals doesn't always feel good. That was the second thing that really hit home. First, progress isn't linear. And then second, doing the work to achieve your goals doesn't always feel great. Sometimes it feels like you're on top of the world. And then sometimes it just sucks. And that's life, that's the whole experience of it. And the third thing is, when it sucks and when there are setbacks, it doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean everything that you have done, everything you have worked for is null and void. All it means is you are human. You are going to have setbacks. You're going to have emotions. And you are experiencing the full human experience. And that's a good thing. That's a thing to be aware of and really honor, I think, at this point, especially as, you're working on a goal or you're trying to change something maybe that you've struggled with in the past and you maybe have given up on or something like that. And so those are some big takeaways that I had for these past couple of weeks. And so here's where I am now. There have been a few tweaks in my nutrition and training that are going to take me to the next phase of this preparation. I have fully recommitted to my plan. And most importantly, I am back to trusting the process. The work I'm doing is adding up, even if it isn't obvious day to day. And, the same goes for you, for anything that you're working on. If you've had a moment lately where you felt like you were just crushing it and then suddenly you find yourself off course, frustrated, having doubts, you are not alone. The path to your goal will always include some bumps, maybe some detours, maybe even a breakdown. But what matters most is what you do next. Yeah, what matters most is what you do next. You get to begin again. Practice that self-compassion, reset, refocus, and do that as many times as you need to. There's no expiration date on it. There's no limit to it. You get to begin again with compassion as many times as it takes. And so thank you so much for letting me share this check-in with you. If this episode spoke to something in your experience or in your heart, send me a message over on Instagram at Lisa Dupree Coaching. I love hearing from you all. You are doing better than you think, and keep showing up and keep your mojo rising. Until next time.